What's up, Chaficionados, and welcome back to Draft Chaff. This is episode 199. This is the Outlaws of Thunder Junction format breakdown, and I have a guest who actually, believe it or not, coined the term Chaficionado. Dare I say, Chaficionado number one? The Chaficionado?
Zero, I guess. I'm the patient zero of Chaficionados.
Patient zero, indeed.
That was a good name. I actually did. I was proud of that one, honestly.
It is.
Yeah, I did.
It's a brilliant name, and we're all proud to identify with it. So, Sierkovitz, thank you for being here. People know you in the Magic community as honestly an expert data craftsman, a brilliant drafter, a streamer, and apparently mystified by your cat-like or your ability to control your cat's whereabouts outside. This has seemed to stun people.
Oh yeah, that's only Benji that cannot believe it. But my cat is truly a miracle of animal kingdom by just basically walking next to my leg for mile-plus walks. He went there today with me again. It was windy as hell, but at least sunny. Just casually strolled, and he's literally I'm putting my headphones, and the cat knows that we're going for a walk, and he's waiting at the door.
Brilliant.
I mean, I'll take it. It's nice. Dog is running like an idiot, and the cat is just following very patiently.
That's great. Well, shall we take a trip to the Wild West?
Yeehaw!
Yee freaking haw! Got this won't fit over my headphones, but this is what we're gonna do. This will be the thumbnail, I guess, something like this. So, without further ado, we've got our format breakdown today. Before we get into the format breakdown, a quick shout out. If you'd like to support either Draft Chaff or Sierkovitz's endeavors, doing all sorts of nonsense related to limited Magic, check us out on Patreon. Draft Chaff patrons, y'all are the best. There are some stickers on the way coming out from murders from the past set. They look pretty great. Also, our Patreon funds the bounty boards, and the new bounties are up. So be sure to check out Discord or the previous episode to find out what bounties you should be hunting starting at pre-release, which is, as of the release of this video, this week. So not too late to start claiming some free packs towards the end of the format. And be on a lookout. An announcement will be coming out about who wins the free packs from Murders at Karlov Manor. And of course, hop into Discord. It's the best place to hang out with fellow Chaficionados, including Sierkovitz, who often pops up in the Draft Chaff Discord.
I like to keep my hand on the pulse.
Before we get into it, let's just start with a quick Teferi Tibolt. A high and a low, a rose and a thorn from the past week. I've illustrated those here with what I guess is an undead gunslinger and a sheriff. I don't really necessarily want to promote propaganda on here, but let's just say that's like the goodness of the law, an idealized form of the sheriff.
I mean, if you did, wouldn't you call it Tibolt and Jace?
Ooh, yeah. Now, why don't you start us off? You've been here before. You know how we do this.
Oh, yeah, I do. I can start with my Tibolt. And that's when I was coming back from my vacay. The train stopped in the middle of nowhere, and then they just told us to get out of it and wait for the next train to come with all the luggage. And then we had to find a spot, and it turned out that the train that they put us into was already laden with people from an additional cancelled train because there were some strikes going on top of the failures. Yikes. Long story short, it was fun and stressful, and also I had to carry all the luggages like in a very high speed across very long platforms, and my old body was broken by that, so now I'm in pain from my legs. That was the Tibolt. A good side of that is that we're going to get reimbursed our trip, so that's fine.
All I'm hearing is
half a Teferi. There is upside.
All I'm hearing is that you have a functional public transportation system via train, and that you're not car beholden as we are over here in the US.
Half functional. Oh no, trains are great. I mean, I generally think that we should use more of those, and there should be night trains, and night trains would be a game changer for the transportation. Like, imagine you start on Friday evening, somewhere, whatever, let's call it Boston,
Mhm.
and you wake up in Miami, and you're there in the morning, excellent, and you lost nothing because you just slept on the train, right?
Look, man, you don't have to sell me on high-speed rail. I'm voting for it every time. Now, how about a True to Fairy?
A True to Fairy. I mean, I'm honestly super stoked about this set. I look at it, I read the spoiler many times. I try to figure out what's going on with it, and all I see is positive thoughts. It's like high-powered, it's high synergy as well. It looks like there's going to be some fun build-arounds, but it looks like it's going to be also powerful. It looks like there's no duds, or very few of those. 7 Oblivion Rings. 7.
And a
It's gonna
creature
be
with
a
a
wild
distance
ride.
staple to it.
I think, like, honestly, the bonus sheet looks absolutely stacked, both in terms of financial value, but also in terms of like fun value. I can get my favorite card of all time, Grindstone.
Oh, how about that? Nice. You know,
Yeah.
I had to go and look over the bonus sheet. I almost didn't want to look at it too much, just so I have some of that element of surprise and wonder. The 15-year-old opening a Magic pack for the first time type of feeling when pre-release comes up this week. But I took some sneak peeks, and Cruel Ultimatum is in this set. That's nuts. Like, you can do that in the... Man.
There's the 8-mana Plague Wind that makes you draw for each creature that you destroyed. I don't know what it's called.
That's awesome.
It's like, yeah, just 8 mana, destroy all creatures target player controls. You draw a card for each one that was killed.
Wow.
Boom.
Cool.
There's gonna be some fun cards, and their build-arounds look pretty neat. I don't know exactly which one of them will be working, but some of them I think will be quite good.
I've got an interesting Teferi and Tibolt this week. We actually had some natural phenomenon in my area. On Friday last week, we had a good-sized earthquake strike New Jersey, which basically never happens. I've never been alive for one of this magnitude. It was around 4.8, and it happened right in the middle of class while I was talking about the internal structure of Earth, and it was glorious. It's the type of thing that, as a scientist, as a teacher, you can only... You can imagine scenarios like this happening. And the looks in the kids' eyes where they realized that thing that we were sort of just talking about is happening around us, beautiful. That, in addition,
that is cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. We were talking about the Earth's magnetic field, so not quite tectonic plate physics, but we also had an eclipse this week in New Jersey. It was at around 91%, which I don't know. It's nothing like totality, but it was still pretty cool to see. The kids all came out. We have a solar telescope at our school. We got to look at that. And I made the qualifier weekend next week playing Boros Convoke in Standard. So I know, dirty constructed format, but you know, Convoke, it really eats it at what I like about Magic, which is early turn aggro sequencing.
And Immodane Recruiter. Come on, you can't say no to that card.
It was a Draft Chaff hero. We voted it the Draft Chaffiest card in the set. So happy to jam a couple of those. Only 3 most decks are playing in Pioneer, but 4 in Standard. So
3 is enough. Or 1 in Domain. Just like 1 in Domain deck. That's like cherry on top. I love that stack.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
It's you win every single mirror pre-sideboard because you just wait until you have 10 mana. You just play the whatever is called the Herd Migration, and you play Immodane's Recruiter, swing for 20, done.
And like, what other creatures are you really fetching off Atraxa? You don't really need a second one at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can very easily dig to it. Yeah.
My Tibolt this week is that there's just too many new cards coming out to look at. I haven't given the Commander decks a single glance, and I usually like to. I've fallen off Commander more and more as time has gone on. But sometimes those.
Where's the downside?
Okay,
where is the downside?
Have cube relevance. I mean, if they start showing up and I don't know what they do, it's embarrassing for me, you know?
I guess that you just need to make a cube without commander cards.
Which is exactly what I have, and it's beautiful, and I'll never change it.
I think we shouldn't like we honestly shouldn't think that every card is for us or should be for us. I absolutely haven't, and I don't know anything about the Doctor Who set because it's not for me. I
The
don't
Warhammer
know
stuff.
anything about the Fallout set because it's not for me.
Yeah.
I might snipe if I look through the binder in my LGS, and if I find some card that I feel like I need in constructed, I'm just gonna pick it up because I don't care what versions I have, and if they are mismatched, I just need a playset or something, and that's it. But I'm not gonna sit through the spoilers of Assassin's Creed if it's not gonna be draftable in Arena. I don't care.
Yeah, it's true. I guess I just have I have some bad FOMO about it. I feel like if maybe there's going to be a really cool card that's just for me, but I ignore it because it's not in the right set. But I guess if it's not draftable, maybe it isn't for me.
If it's for you, it will find you.
That's true. If I truly love it, it'll come back to me. All right, into the format breakdown. Now, we have made a lot of changes to our format breakdown over the years. And here at Draft Chaff, we realize it's best to cut straight to the heart of what we're going to be doing. We're drafting chaff, and that chaff is often guiding you for what it wants to do. So I think it's really impossible to talk about a format without talking about the signposts. These are the guideposts, sort of telling you what each color pair is trying to do. And we're going to take a look at each of the 2 uncommon cards that represent each color pair in the set. There's a legend and then some spell in each color pair. And well, we've also picked out some key cards, ones that seem somewhat relevant for the 2 color pair, what that color pair seems to be trying to do, or in some cases, maybe ones that could be traps or otherwise. Now, Draft Chaff, we sort of have this running heuristic, this running joke, this vector theory that helps us analyze cards. Cards have magnitude and direction according to vector theory. Get a little physics in here. I know that's not maybe your favorite your favorite science in the world, Sierkovitz, but I'm sure you have a healthy appreciation for physics, right?
I do have appreciation for understanding how the world operates, be it physics, biology, sociology, anything that uses some sort of methodology that is at least verifiable.
And a verifiable methodology is sort of what vector theory is, except the testing experiments are usually just me winning games. So I think that counts. It's.
I just think you're missing the quantity part of the vector, don't you?
Well, maybe if I knew someone who was good at, working with the numbers associated with magic cards and sets, I don't know.
Seems no, like but vectors have magnitude, directions, and quantity, don't they? Or Euclidean vectors, at least.
Well, let's say we're using the high school freshman version of a vector. So, to find out what a card's vector is, simply ask, when is this card at its best? And then sort of work backwards from there. It's not hard to figure out when some bomb rares work at their best, basically any time. So we would say that those cards, the direction doesn't matter so much, and that their magnitude is just generically very strong in whatever direction you choose to point them. Whereas some cards are only good in certain scenarios. Maybe they require a lot of building around. Maybe they only are ever going to be good if you're in this one specific color pair and you get just this right combination of cards. We might say that those have a very particular direction, and if in that direction they have a strong magnitude, but otherwise not. And this is a heuristic you can apply while drafting, building your deck, and also making decisions during gameplay. We're going to use that to help us analyze. But first, let's just run through some mechanics real quick. Sierkovitz, you want to tell us what plot is?
Plot is a mechanic that allows you to exile a spell from your hand, and it stays exiled until at least next turn, but it can stay longer. And after, whenever you choose that it's worth it, you can cast it at sorcerer speed without paying any mana. And plot spells will be a couple of different categories. There are the ones that are just slightly cheaper when they're plotted, and that sort of helps you to basically prepare them in advance. You announce them, so you lose a bit of the surprise factor by doing that. But you can also squeeze them on a better spot on the mana curve. For example, you don't have anything to cast on 2. You can plot a spell for 2, cast it on turn 3, rather than not spending any mana on turn 2. there are some spells that cost the same or even more, but for them it's beneficial to be plotted because of some effect. And actually, the one that you picked here, the Brimstone Roundup, is pretty good. An example, because it costs 2 normally, but you can plot it for 3. The idea is that on turn 3 you can plot it, on turn 4 you cast it for free, and then you can cast your 4-drop, which means you double spell and you get that free mercenary. That's the bonus. Or you can just not plot it, cast it on turn 2 and double spell on turn 3 with other spells, but maybe then you will run out of your fuel. And there are a couple of spells that have an additional effect when they're plotted. There's one red creature that you can plot. You can cast it for 3 as a 3/3. You can plot it for 4 mana, but if you plot it, you also shock something. So you get this extra bonus for plotting it. Did I get it?
Yeah, that seems perfect. I like the flexibility in these. I tend to look in sets these days for mechanics that allow you to do something early if you have this card in hand, and then do something late if you have this card in hand. And this, while having multiple costs, multiple ways to quote unquote cast it, doesn't quite do that. But there are some that sort of fall into that general vein.
I think it's this is going to be the defining mechanism of the whole set. Plotting is going to be what defines OTJ, and we will have to learn very quickly when to plot, when not to plot, when to keep the card, when to expose it, how to protect it. There are actually discard spells that can target cards that are already plotted, which is an interesting spin.
Right.
Sort of like a post-casting counter spell, which is a very weird concept, but it does somehow work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting, and it's going to be like some colors will make or break on the fact, can I plot a card on turn 3? Is this format allowing me to do that? Or is the Fun Police going to overrun me if I don't do anything on turn 3? And we're going to see how it works. But I think that this is a neat mechanic, and we'll see how exactly it operates. I mean, it does remind a bit of Foretell in a way. Mm-hmm. It's just that Foretell was good in splitting costs in half, and this one is more all or nothing. But it has a flexibility on when to cast, and you don't need any mana at that stage.
I do ultimately see it as a defensive to mid-rangey mechanic as opposed to an offensive one, in that when you are plotting, you are sort of voting to say, I would like the game to keep going to make better use of this this thing that requires me to at least make it to my next turn, right? If you plot and then die, that wasn't really a card in your hand.
Yeah. But this set generally has the hallmarks of a more mid-rangey set. It's not going. I doubt that it's going to be as fast. There are going to be fast decks. I think like the Selesnya deck is going to be pretty fast, for example. Mm-hmm. But the rest of them are more like value oriented, and 1-drops are not atrocious, and 2-drops are tame.
Mm-hmm.
Said me looking at a 2-mana 2/2 double striker.
Yeah, here's your tame 2-drop. So
it's still a 2/2. It's still a 2/2. You still need to. The card we're talking about is Omenport Vigilante, 1 and a white for human mercenary, and it's a 2/2. And when you commit a crime, which is the mechanic we're going to be talking about, I guess, it gets double strike. So crime is basically doing anything to your opponent that requires targeting them, their creature, their graveyard spells on stack that they control, and stuff like that. Basically, anything you do to something that targets something that opponent has is a crime.
And a lot of the cards in this set seem to be templated in ways such that they make crimes happen. Even on little spells that might not necessarily do this, it'll say something like, rather than each opponent sacrifices a creature, which they might just print in a random set and not think anything of it, it'll say target opponent in the set to give you that extra ability to do a crime, or just targeted creature removal will always commit crimes. And there's some things that can target both you or your opponent, just in case you need that one last crime to finish them off.
There are lands that are criminal.
True. Those deserts, I'm very interested to see how they play out. I typically think of a set with tapped gain lands as one where you're going to be going into these sort of splashy, multicolored, cool late game piles. Neon Dynasty comes to mind. as an excellent set with this same idea of dual lands. But what about when those dual lands are objectively more aggressive, right? When dual lands instead sort of push you towards wanting to end the game sooner. I have no idea how they're going to play out, to be honest.
That's an interesting one. I think that this is somewhat balanced by less aggressive makeup of the one drops, particularly. I think it's a very weird set. It's a very weird set in how it's designed in terms of how creatures are sized. It's going to be pretty interesting how that plays out. But yeah, we can speculate all we want until we get the cards in our paws. There's not much you can do about it.
Right.
Yeah, maybe with crime, worth mentioning that it's mainly blue and black that are caring about the mechanics. They have the payoffs for being criminal. And I guess that crime in general is more like a Grixis kind of an idea. So if you were looking where your vector is pointing in crime, that's Grixis for you.
Very good. Now, you might even go on a crime spree at some point. Spree, I see, is well, it's a kicker variant, but it's a very good one. So spree cards, they have some cost to them, but if you tried to just cast it for that cost, I'm not even sure you're allowed to put it on the stack. I guess not, if it has no
No,
targets.
you're not. You have to pick at least one.
So a spree card like Dance of the Tumbleweeds says 1 green and then a little plus in the top right, which I think is nice. It says spree. And then you can pay 1 to search a library for basic or a desert from the battlefield, tap and shuffle, or pay 3 to create an XX, create a green elemental creature token where X is the number of lands you control, or you can pick both, and then they would resolve in the order in which they appear on the card.
Yeah, it's a very nice mechanic, I guess. Cards that have multiple options not only that tend to be good, but also tend to promote better players. So happy times.
They tend to be pretty fun too. People like having choices. One that I'm maybe most excited for is another way of approaching vehicles, saddle. So we're going to be saddling up, yippee-ki-yay and all that. Saddle reads very similar to crew. Tap any number of other creatures you control with total power 2 or more, for example, for saddle 2 untrained Arinx here. This mount becomes saddled until end of turn. Saddle only as a sorcery, so that is a key difference as opposed to accruing creatures.
Well, that's a great choice by the design team, by the way, because that means that you will not have on Arena every single time priority holding, because you will be able to activate your mount. It doesn't change anything with the mechanic. It's just purely mechanistic for the online play.
But this does imply that you can never saddle on your opponent's turn, which means that it's a strictly aggressive mechanic because you will only ever saddle in your first main phase prior to attacking. There's no reason to do it any other time.
But yeah, saddle effects are only the effects that trigger when you attack. So
yeah, no defensive saddle effects. For example, the trained Arinx, the 2-mana 3/1, it attacks when saddled. It has first strike until end of turn, and you scry 1. It's a nice little 2-drop there.
That's a lovely 2-drop. I think defining card for the archetype in general. 2-mana 3/1. White in this format, we will come to that, I guess, at some stage. But white looks pretty much defensive, and this is like the stalwart for aggressive cards in white. And I think that's going to be very important for the most aggressive color combination in white, which will be, I hope, Selesnya.
And one little thing to mention here, Outlaws, they have batched some creature types. Assassins, mercenaries, pirates, rogues, and warlocks. I personally have no idea how they're going to represent this visually on Arena. I hope they have some sort of animation when an outlaw enters the battlefield, just to make it easier. But I'll leave that to the design.
There will be definitely, like they did with the party or something.
Yeah. Well, let's get right into our first vector here. We have Gem Lightfoot, spelled in a funny way, Gem Lightfoot Sky Explorer, in our blue-white vector, which we're calling Draw Go. It seems to be a bit of a Draw Go sort of archetype. This Gem Lightfoot here is 2 white-blue for the 3/3 Flying Vigilance. It's a human scout and uncommon. It's a legend. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, draw a card. This reads as very strong to me.
Yeah, if it survives.
We also have Wrangler of the Damned. 3 white-blue. It's a 1/4 flash, human soldier at uncommon. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't cast a spell from your hand this turn, create a 2/2 white spirit creature token with flying. Another good payoff for not casting a spell in a certain turn.
If it survives.
If it survives. Are you saying it dies to Doomblade?
I'm not saying it dies to Doomblade. I'm saying that we had lots of the cards like that recently, that they are good if they survive a whole turn cycle. And it's not so easy to keep those, especially juicy creatures with good value for the whole turn cycle, because obviously opponent is not going to be super thrilled to give you the opportunity of getting free value. And cards like that did suffer in recent sets. I don't know if that's going to be the case here. There are some cards that may help them surviving that turn, but Gem Lightfoot especially, I can see a problem with keeping it alive, because you want to play it on turn 4 probably. You need to tap out. If you tap out, any removal, will probably be targeted at it pretty quickly, because it is a good body. It is an aggressive creature and also will accrue a lot of value. Wrangler of Damned, on the other hand, is pretty expensive, and if it survives and does the things, fine. But if it doesn't, it's pretty much like game breaking. When you cast a 5 mana spell, it gets killed, and you wasted 5 mana.
Yeah,
we're gonna see how they play out. I'm not like saying that this archetype will not work. However, when I was building my draft skeleton for blue-white, when we do a skeleton kind of analysis, I built it. I put Gem Lightfoot, by the way, in it, but I built it as blue-white skies, and I think that there is like really solid blue-white flying creatures that you can get access to, rather than focusing on that synergy. And I would rather look at the Jemima. I guess it's short from Jemima, is it? Jemima Lightfoot. I will probably look for, maybe I can get some value, but I'm not going to be like going all in for that value. It's sort of like Shalai in Wilds of Eldraine, where I was happy to play it, but I was not like putting like 50 different cards that tap something just to get the extra value. I was happy with getting minimal value out of it, and using this card as a lightning rod for removal, because people are going to be afraid of extra value that can accrue from it.
Now, these two cards point in very interesting directions. They care about you not casting a spell from your hand in a certain turn. Wrangler is actually even easier to enable because it itself has flash, so it actually pairs pretty well in this vector already. But there are two big ways in the set to meet what these two are asking you to do, which is to not cast a spell. You could spend your whole turn activating an ability, such as the one on Plot. And it also says haven't cast a spell from your hand. So you could also cast a plotted spell from exile. Both of these would meet these requirements, and you would get your Gem Lightfoot payoff or your Wrangler of the Dam payoff. But another interesting thing that they've seeded into the set are creatures with flash and big instants. And these also meet the requirement of not having cast a thing from your hand in a certain turn. So Geyser Drake is sort of a pointer in that direction. If you are building a deck with this in mind, I think this might be a solid card. It's one of the 2 and a blue for a 2/3 flying Drake at common. It says, as long as it's not your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
Yeah, that's quite pushed for a Wind Drake.
There's also a Holy Cow.
Both of those cards are pushed Wind Drakes.
Holy cow, right. 2 and a white, a 2/2 Ox Angel at common with flash, flying, and when it enters, you gain 2 life and scry 1. So both of these sort of pushing you towards that, not plotting so much as trying to cast stuff with flash. Now, what I'm curious about is, will this blue-white deck wind up as a muddled mix of all of these things, flyers, plot cards, and flash cards, or will you wind up with a, say, dedicated Skies deck that doesn't really care about casting stuff on other turns? Will you wind up with a dedicated flash deck, or will you wind up with a dedicated plot deck, or could blue-white maneuver through all of these, given that Gem Lightfoot and Wrangler pay you off for all of them?
Yeah, I think that all the options are possible. I just think that playing a Skies deck does not necessarily conflict in any way with the not casting spells on your turn. because you have a bunch of stuff that you can just cast with flash, like holy cow. You have the phantasmal something. It's one of the spree cards that one of the options is quench, and the other option is make a 2/2 flyer.
It's coming up somewhere. I have it somewhere in here.
Well, it's somewhere in here. Anyway, it's like a counter spell that can be a 2/2 flyer token, and this is another card that you can leave up. But this is again like the thing that I am a bit skeptical in this deck, that you don't have many counter spells in this format. And when I play at instant speed and flash, I want to have the option to have access to counter spells. And because you don't have like solid counter spells, and by solid counter spells, I mean counter something, no discussion, like a cancel. You have one at rare, which is great, but it's at rare, so you won't get access to many of those. If you don't have access to those, well, then you have only the pay 2 extra or pay 3 extra kind of counter spell. The problem with those things is that if people plot things, well, if they plot it, you cannot counter the plot with the counter spell. And when they cast the plot spell for 0 mana, they will have all the mana in the world that they want. So you won't be able to counter anything with your counter spells. So I'm not going to say they're going to be rubbish, but there's going to be more situation in which they are rubbish than normally. And that probably is a no-no for them. Which means that you will be only keeping your mana up to cast the holy cow. And the whole power of playing those kind of, I don't do anything on my turn, I will do things at instant speed on your turn. And the whole power of those things is having diversity of approaches. So at the end of turn, like Terrace Beyond Death was perfect because at 3 mana, I had a draw spell. There was the Thirst for something. One of the thirsts. I don't know which one was that. I guess
Discovery,
it was the one that discarded land. Yeah, maybe. There was a counter spell. There was the what was it?
Welkin turn, right?
Divine something. Well, 3 mana counter spell. You have to pay 4 mana, whatever.
Yeah.
And there was the Vexing Gull. So you had 3 things. Yeah. So you had 3 things to choose from. If your opponent played something, you could counter it. If they didn't play something, but you said, okay, maybe I need to stock up on the fuel, I draw some cards. And if you said, okay, maybe it's time to advance my board presence, I'm going to play the Vexing Gull. And having access to all 3 of those, and also not making opponent understand what you have, made their life a living hell to play against that kind of a deck. Yeah. Well, here it's going to be, oh, well, they're untapped. They either have nothing or they will play Holy Cow. And that makes it much easier to play against such a strategy. And I think that, especially when people learn how to plot, and they will understand that the counterspell is useless as long as you plot things, it's going to be a problematic situation for the Azorius mages. Problem that maybe the flying deck will not have, because flying deck doesn't care that you know that you're going to play a flyer. It just wants to play the flyer. The only reason to play it at instant speed is to not cast anything on your turn, so that you can accrue maybe some of those bonuses from the 3/3 vigilance thing, or maybe some other things that give you additional bonuses when you don't cast things on your turn, like the Prairie Dog, I think, has some +1/+1 counters going on.
This is definitely one of the vectors that I'm most curious to see what versions of this deck come out best, or what the good decks that are blue-white happen to look like. And also what I'm least confident in. Crime pays if you're blue-black. We have Lazav, Familiar Stranger. 1 blue-black, it's a 1/4 shapeshifter. And whenever you commit a crime, put a 1/1 counter on it. Then you may exile a card from a graveyard. If a creature card was exiled this way, you may have Lazav become a copy of that card until end of turn. This ability triggers only once each turn.
I mean, it grows. That's a great ability. I mean, you do 1 crime, so you play it on turn 4, and you play a desert tapped, and you ping opponent for 1, and Lazav instantly becomes a 2/5 for 3 mana, which is good.
That's already enough.
Sometimes you might copy it if there is a good reason for doing that. At some stage, exiling a flyer and making a big Lazav with all the +1/+1 counters, swing in the air is going to be fine.
I guess by the time you're playing it on 3, if anything is in the graveyard, it's probably worse than 1/4. I mean, maybe a 2/2. Would you prefer to have a 3/3 or a 2/5?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that the thing is that you want to keep your exiles to the minimum, because it's not like last Lazav when that you could choose that exiled creature anytime.
Right.
When you had the trigger. This one you use it once and then never comes back. It's done. So I guess that it's fine for Lazav to become a copy of a 1/1 flyer, even if it has 5+1/+1 counters on it already, or 4.
And you just win the game.
Exactly. So that's the kind of things that you might want to it become a copy of.
We've got Intimidation Campaign. Look, I love a good campaign type card. This is it. 1 blue black for an enchantment and uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life, and you draw a card. And whenever you commit a crime, you may return Intimidation Campaign to its owner's hand. This is a callback to a couple cards we've seen before. I don't know if it's going to be as good. Yeah.
This is literally Dovin's Acuity. It just you do something, it comes back to your hand. When you cast it, you draw a card and gain 2 life. Instead of gaining 2 life, opponent loses 1, you gain 1. It's a bit different. Makes it easier to have a win con, but also doesn't cushion you as well as Dovin Acuity did. So I don't know if the Dovin's Acuity deck, like the one from Ravnica Allegiance, is going to be possible. It's not Disinformation Campaign, unfortunately, because the discard was essential in that particular card. It's a sweet card. And I can't take credit for that, but I've been doing this skeleton stream yesterday, and Jason Yee, one of the masterminds of Limited in general, and constructed also for some inexplicable reason.
Why Slogurk, right? If I remember.
Yeah. They sort of proposed an archetype that will play Intimidation Campaign that is Sultai and will use a mana dork that untaps anytime, once a turn untaps when you commit a crime. Because that thing will fuel your mana needs, and those decks are super mana hungry. So you get to commit the crime, get more mana, replay Intimidation Campaign, gain some life, blah, 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 spin the wheels.
And I was watching the stream, seeing this deck, and thinking, this is a really cool deck. It'd be awesome if it came together. I can't imagine it being common or easy or recommendable to do outside of the most extreme scenario where you wind up with somehow a bunch of good crime cards early. Not just ones that sort of like spin the wheels, but ones that actually advance your board and your game state. I guess I'm just haunted by sets in the recent past where you can't afford a 3-mana enchantment.
You'll be surprised how good crime cards you will be able to get for that specific deck. Because if you're playing this deck, first of all the dual lands are like pretty high picks for you because they're all crimes. And you don't even need spells to commit crimes. You just need the deserts. Second of all, you can pick all the defensive white removal that might be going a bit later. Like I'm talking Ariet's Lullaby, I'm talking Steer Clear, those kind of cards. You'll be able to cast them quite easily if you have those green mana dorks because they give mana of any color. You might be able to cast them because you will use the filter land that looks actually quite good in this set. So I wouldn't be worried about getting your murder quotas.
Not 12 of them,
I would be worried about, does the speed of this format permit that deck to exist? And
that's my biggest concern.
Mildly positive. I'm definitely going to try, and I'm going to invest a significant amount of gems in trying to make it work, only just to later learn from Sam Black how it should work, actually.
I look forward to seeing that deck in action before I give it a shot. And I do have high hopes that this is not going to be quite as aggressive a format as in recent memory, but hey. Here we've got Harrier Strix. This is a blue for a 1/1 bird with flying. When it ETBs, tap target permanent. That's a crime. And you can pay 2 and a blue to draw a card, then discard a card. Nice little effect. This seems to glue together both this, and also that's an activated ability that you might use, say, in a turn where you're not casting any spells. So it might have some blue-white overlap with the Flyers deck as well.
Yep.
And we've got Blood Hustler here. One of the black, 1/1, Vampire Rogue at uncommon. Whenever you commit a crime, put a 1/1 counter on it. This ability triggers only once each turn. But then it also has 3 and a black, target opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. This is a nice little combo with that Intimidation Campaign.
Yeah, and on its own right, a sort of potential win con if it survives long enough. It would just be very big, and also, even if it isn't, it can embiggen itself by draining for 1 as you choose target opponent.
Let's talk about Outlaw Country. Our red-black deck here. We've got Vile Smasher, Gleeful Grenadier, black-red for a 3/2 Goblin Mercenary at uncommon. Whenever another outlaw enters the battlefield under your control, Vile Smasher deals 1 damage to target opponent. That sounds like a crime.
It makes the crime. It does the crime. Yeah, it looks great. I mean, it's good on rate. 3/2 for 2 mana is good. We've seen a black-red 3/2 creature signpost uncommon that made quite a career in Constructed before. So I don't think that this one will, by the way, but it's something.
If this was any target, maybe, but not this.
Yeah. If it was any target, then definitely. It's also legendary, which makes it less playable in Constructed because you don't want to draw two copies of the same card. But it looks very solid. I think that from looking at the colors, it's not going to be strictly super turbo aggressive as a deck. It's going to be more like grindy Mardu from Ikoria kind of style of those Outlaws decks in my head. At least that's how they look like. Because I don't see this super speed. I don't see like extremely powerful 2-drops. I don't see a powerful 1-drop in that archetype, for example. So we will see how it works.
We have at Knife Point as our other uncommon signpost here. 1 black-red enchantment. As long as it's your turn, outlaws you control have first strike. And whenever you commit a crime, create a 1/1 red mercenary creature token with tap. Target creature you control gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. And then that whole ability of creating that token triggers only once each turn. Those tokens are going to show up again. From this point on, we can just refer to them as the 1/1 mercenary tokens or tap to buff tokens or whatever. I kind of wish they made them able to target opponents' creatures, but to commit more crimes.
That would be fast. That would be, it would break the format in a way that it wouldn't be playable. If you would be at will capable of committing a crime with those tokens that are attached to anything, it would be unplayable.
Even with many of these clauses limited to once per turn?
Even with many of those clauses limited to 1 return. Because that means that on your turn, you will always get a free activation, and then you would just need instant interaction to play on their turn. And it's 1 per turn, but twice per turn cycle. You could rake so much value from that.
Yeah, okay, that's true.
And you could play... what's the point of giving your opponent's creature +1/+0? Except for triggering the crime.
That's exactly it. It would be a tension there. There'd be, I'm buffing my opponent's thing, making it a better blocker if I'm thinking of attacking this turn, but I'm building up my board, developing my game.
You did post-combat anyway. I mean, that's the whole point. It wouldn't... If there was a drawback of doing that, if you could only do it in before combat, whatever phase, that would be fine. But if you can just do it whenever, that's...
What if it was one-time use? If the token sacked itself upon tapping?
Well, that would be rubbish then. The ability would be rubbish. I mean, you want to reuse them. Anyway.
At Knife Point.
At Knife Point doesn't look very appealing to me. However, I can imagine some decks that will be built exclusively for utilizing multiple token generation and some kind of a grindy sacrifice kind of style things.
Mm-hmm. To me, at Knife Point seems like the exact type of card I would want to see my opponent play on turn 3 if I'm piloting the green-white saddle deck. Yeah. It's like, oh boy, they did nothing. And I can beat what they're going to do next.
Yeah, you want to play it on turn 4 with the desert. Again, this is the kind of a card that you want to get the first trigger on the turn you play it somehow.
So along this vector, which clearly is asking us to play Outlaws, right? Which again, we're Assassins, Mercenaries, Pirates, Rogues, and Warlocks. Hellspur Brute here, 4 in a red for a 5/4 trample, but it has affinity for Outlaws. That's a fun little flavor bit there.
If you can get it for 3 mana, bam. And you can. I mean, you can do 1-drop, 2-drop into this.
Totally.
There is a good 1-drop outlaw, the one that dies into another outlaw. So even if they kill it, you're going to have an outlaw. And then you just play in turn 2 some sort of outlaw. And if it survives, you got your brute on turn 3. That's going to be an aggressive curve. And I do like that.
Rictus Robber is our other card here that seems to point along this vector. 3 and a black. It's a 4/3. It's a zombie rogue, so there you go. When it enters the battlefield, if a creature died this turn, create a 2/2 blue and black zombie rogue creature token. It also has plot for 2 and a black. Nice little flexible card here. You get to plot it early, so you kind of get a discount on it. You get to wait, and this will make your opponent really think about their attacks. I guess in this case, blocks, given that you have to cast it as a sorcery. And sort of makes... this is just sort of the card where it hangs over your opponent's head and influences their play patterns, because they're really not going to want to give you that 2/2, but you'll probably be able to maneuver the game such that you get it.
Well, but that's what I love about that card. That card is exactly going to win me games, because people don't want to give me a 2/2, and I'm slamming and jamming for like million damage because of that, because they are worried about blocking, which is a great design, because again, it's like it's just like promoting learning new things in set design, and I love that they're putting it more and more into the recent sets. I noticed, so you can easily level up because you have like a very good case study of learning a certain type of behavior that sometimes you just need to let the opponent get what they plan to get, because if you don't, you're actually doing what they dream of.
Yeah, it's sort of like every once in a while they print a Punisher type card, like a 3 mana. They can take a bunch of damage, or you get to draw a bunch of cards, and I feel like that might be a similar learning experience to what you're describing.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like Rictus Robber. There must be some kind of a joke / pun in that name that I don't know if I want to know what it is, but there must be a pun in there. The word Rictus is too specific.
I don't know what Rictus means. Let us know in the comments if you do, because I don't know. Is it like what are they robbing in the art? Is that like a... Oh, now hold on. It is a zombie and it makes a zombie. Could Rictus relate to death? Is it like an undead thing?
Rictus is the sort of like smile that you have on your face after you die. This death grimace sort of.
Oh, I see. Okay,
so it's probably like wiping the smile out of your face or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I get it. On to For Power, which is not a new thing for red-green to be doing, but it is a good thing in this set. We've got Jolene, Plundering Pugilist here. 1 red-green for a 4/2, human mercenary. When you attack with 1 or more creatures with power 4 or greater, create a treasure token. She already triggers that by herself.
And then if you're the defending player, you have to plead with the controller of Jolene not to use that treasure to ping your mercenary by asking them not to kill your man.
Nice. Well, that is the second ability on this thing. 1 in a red, sack a treasure. Jolene deals 1 damage to any target.
Including your man.
Including your man. Which I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of men dying by the hands of Jolene in this set. This card looks sick.
Yeah, it's. I like that there's just, I think, enough of the 4/2s for 3 mana in this set to make that archetype viable. Because first of all, if there is only 1, it will always die. You need like a critical mass of those 4/2s to make some of them stick. And probably Jolene is going to be the first to go, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But it means that the others will survive, and they also have neat abilities. But also it means that you can reliably get the 4-power creature on turn 3 and accrue all the bonuses related to having that. I think it looks pretty solid. And when you move to Cactus Folk Sure Shot, I'm going to introduce it for you then.
Go right ahead.
The 4 mana 2 red green 4/4 with reach. This one has Ward 2, which also means that it will survive quite easily till turn 5 or something. It's really hard to kill it for 2 mana. There's a couple of spells that can do it, but it will very likely be alive, and you can be somewhat assured to get your bonuses. And this one also has a nice thing. It sort of gives haste and trample to all your creatures with power 4 or greater, except itself.
And when you say there's only a few things that kill it, I know you're not being hyperbolic. You've already done the analysis on the removal spells in the format, yes?
Yeah. Obviously I did. But I didn't do it from this perspective of what can kill a Ward 2 creature with 4 toughness at turn 4.
It's
But
not a lot,
there is
though.
the 2 mana deal 5 red spell, and that's and there is a 2 mana Oblivion Ring. One of the 7 Oblivion Rings is a 2 mana one in the bonus sheet.
There's the black
those are
instant that can give -X. It starts as -2/-2, but then if you have 2 deserts, that could give -4/-4.
Yeah, and you can
mana and cards with this.
triple spell somehow with the no, you can't triple spell because
with the red one, yeah.
You plot it on turn 1, you plot it on turn 2, and then you cast the creature that you plotted on turn 2, put the aura that you plotted on turn 1, and cast the salvo on and pay for the ward. Yeah, there are very theoretical scenarios that you can do it that include multiple deserts or multiple spells. But in a realistic scenario, it's the 2 mana deal 5 or the Oblivion Ring.
Mm-hmm. Now, a couple mounts that I found look really nice in this deck. Drover Grizzly here. 2 and a green, 4/2. It's a bear mount at common. When the attacks while saddled, creatures you control gain trample until end of turn, and it has saddle for just 1. It feels like red has the ability to make these mercenary tokens, and I feel like that'll pair really well with the Drover Grizzly.
Yeah, and this also gives trample to all.
Right.
Which, like in the late game, is your basically win con sort of situation. There's like so much good stuff on having those 4/2 creatures. There's Savage Smash in the bonus sheet as well. That's a fight spell that gives +2/+2 and to its target. So the 4/2 turns into a 6/4, kills the blocker, clears the path, deals 6 damage. It's going to be backbreaking when you manage to chain those things.
We've also got, I always forget if it's Gila Courser or Gila Courser. I forget the correct pronunciation.
It's your animals from your side of the pond. We have like, there are no lizards in UK basically. There's like green lizard. That's it.
Honestly,
we have vipers. We have actually venomous snakes where I live.
Oh, nice. You ever see one of those out and about?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we go. Son of my friends is a big fan of finding them, so we go and regularly look for them.
Oh, cool.
They are not like lethal. They are venomous though. So as exotic as England has to offer.
Well, I live in the, I guess, greater New York metro area, so the wilds of the Wild West are about as far away from me as I can get here in the U.S.
Some pretty venomous creatures living in that area, I heard.
Yes, some real bloodsuckers, but not what you might expect. Well, whatever this thing is called, it's a 2 and a red, 4/2 lizard mount at uncommon. Whenever it attacks while saddled, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card. And again, this has saddle 1. A 4-power creature, it costs 3. You slam this, and then you curve it right into that Cactus Folk Sure Shot, and then profit.
Happy
I
times.
assume.
Happy times.
Yeah.
Again, another great creature for the archetype that you can save for later and get some value.
Red-green does sometimes struggle as far as card advantage. I see this as a way to, get that nice attack, exile your next big fatty, slam it the next turn. Done. Now, green-white here, the horse girl archetype, the saddle up. We've got Miriam Herd Whisperer. We've got green-white for a 3/2 human druid, that uncommon. As long as it's your turn, mounts and vehicles you control have hex proof. Whenever a mount or vehicle you control attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Yeah,
what do you think of this?
I think like curving the turn 2 3/1, turn 3 Miriam is going to be game ending in so many cases, especially when you have 3 mana at that stage. You can keep Snakeskin Veil up. You're basically unbeatable at that stage if they tapped out on turn 2, because you swing with the 4/2 first striker. Next turn you swing with the 5/3 first striker. Next turn you swing with the 6/4 first striker, and they will have to start jumping at that stage, and you can be doing things in between.
That's right. So this is all just free value.
Yeah, it's strong. It is sort of glass cannony in a way that it's just a 2 toughness creature, can be killed, but green and white have plethora of protection spells that they can use. There is take down the shield or take up the shield. There is a Snakeskin Veil. There might be some other combat tricks that give plus something, so, and it's just one creature that you have. Congregation Griff, the second one, the 1 green white flying lifelinker 1/4 mount that has saddle 3, which is expensive, but it gets +X until end of turn, where X is the number of mounts you control when it attacks while saddled. It is a mount itself, so it will be at least 2/5 lifelink in the air. But if you have like 1 extra, it will be a 3/6, and if you have 2 extra, it will be a 4/7 lifelinker. You can't win races against something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And keep in mind, if you will manage to curve out Miriam into Congregation Griff, it doesn't need to be settled. It just grows every turn from that moment on, which is going to be also backbreaking. I think a neat combination, and I think that this is the aggression home that uses the best of green. Spoiler alert, I think green is the best color in the set.
Mm.
And it can use whatever aggression you have in white, because other decks are maybe not going to be that interested in getting those aggressive cards.
Notably, that would mean that this archetype would care less about something like, is it Ariet's Slumber? Ariet's Potion? Lullaby, yes. The 1 in the white, destroy target tapped creature, gain 2. This deck may not care so much about that, whereas a more defensive one would. Now, out of curiosity...
It might care about the Steer Clear, the 1 mana combat trick. Normally, it's not like into aggressive decks, because it's a 1 mana, deal 2 damage to a target attacking or blocking creature. But it deals 4 damage when you control a mount, which hopefully in the mount deck you might be more likely to control. And you need to saddle those mounts if you want to get full value. And because you saddle them, you might lose more blockers than you would want for that. And having this option for killing something for 1 mana is going to be pretty decent, because that will let you race while saddling things.
It would also be good with a mount that has saddle, which we actually just talked about, Drover Grizzly.
Yeah.
Did I say saddle or trample? I meant trample, if that's what I said.
Yeah, but I assume that you meant trample, because every mount has saddle. So
yeah. One with trample, of course. Now, out of curiosity, you're a big horseback riding fan?
I rode a horse once in my life. I was not sober. I was at the party at the horse stables, and all the other people were slightly younger, and they had their party, and I was assigned to basically have some drinks with the owner of the stable, who was like this 50-year-old bloke that loved horses. And we had some drinks with him, and he said, "Did you ever ride a horse?" I said, "No." "Oh, I'm going to show you." And then we basically rode this horse without the saddle. So we didn't saddle the horse. It was bareback. And then he just jumped off and left me on the horse. And I was just like on it, going in circles with the horse decided to take me in circles. And I didn't know what to do. And then the guy said, yeah, when it just slows down a bit, just jump off and fall down.
That's amazing.
Roll.
I've hardly passed the party at the horse stables. What kind of parties are you guys having over there?
Well, a friend of ours, that was her dad, by the way. A friend of ours just had a horse stable, and we went to visit her. It was not like some super country club kind of vibe. It was more like rough. She had like
that sounds amazing.
10 horses and a bunch of land that her dad had. Yeah, it was amazing. Apart from the moment when you realize that you're on a horse and you don't know how to steer with it, and there's no indicator lights and whatnot.
Yeah, no blinkers. Well, maybe if the horse was too much, you could try a giant beaver, which is 3 and a green for a 4/4 with vigilance. It's a beaver mount at common. When it attacks while saddled, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature that saddled it this turn. This one is a bit of a steep saddle cost, though. It's saddle 3. And then you're putting a counter on that thing. What do you make of this one?
I mean, 4/4 vigilance for 4, I'm happy with that already.
Mm-hmm.
The saddling thing, again, this is the moment where I want to have my 1 mana deal 4 damage kind of spell, because I will probably saddle the beaver with the creature that I cast in this turn that cannot attack. So I'm playing like a 3/2. I'm using it to saddle the Beaver. It will become a 4/3 next turn, but I'm losing like the capacity to block. It's nice to have that 1 mana thing that can kill whatever. And of course, the Beaver has vigilance, so I will keep a blocker back.
Yeah,
but
it
I
kind
think
of
it's
negates that
decent value.
saddle cost.
Yeah, it is a decent value, but I want to have a deck tuned to be capable of saddling it rather than just try to do it and hope for the best.
Bridal Bighorn is up next. 3 and a white. It's a 3/4 vigilance. It's a sheep mount, a common. And when it attacks while saddled, create a 1/1 white sheep creature token. It has saddle for 2.
Yeah, very, very similar things. It just one tends to go a bit wider, the other one tends to go a bit taller. It's got 1 power less, but it saddles for less. It's just like small things. I think all in all, Giant Beaver is better because when you have it on as the only thing on the board, it's just better, and that's important to know. We always think about, oh yeah, and I'm gonna have like 4 creatures on board. I mean, if you have 4 creatures on board, you're probably winning. Look at the cards and the pessimistic scenario. This is the only thing I got. What do I prefer? Well, I prefer the Giant Beaver from the Giant Goat, I guess.
We've got token smoking here for black-white. Barum Bertram Greywater. 2 white-black. It's a 3/4. Okay. Vampire Noble at uncommon. Whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 black vampire rogue creature token with lifelink. This ability triggers only once each turn, and then has 1 in the black, sack another creature or artifact to draw a card. Nice little aristocrats enabler here.
Well, literally an aristocrat.
Yeah.
Although he could have just bought the title. I don't know the backstory that well. It's Wild West. I'm pretty sure there were lots of barons that had nothing to do with the old families from the Europe. They just like called themselves a baron.
This I don't know if they're after oil. Maybe a mana baron, a token baron, treasure
maybe
baron.
One of the train tycoons with an imagination. I don't know. Did you notice? But probably around 125% of the cards in this set have an exploding train somewhere in the background.
125.
Yeah, I think around 125% of all the cards in the set have an exploding train.
So this guy must have.
It's a lot.
This guy must have done it on TNT.
I might have used the hyperbole there, but
okay, no, I believe you though. That sounds like I'm thinking like, oh yeah, some of the train robbery ones, or there's that ice blue card that the train's exploding to, like.
Oh yeah, just if you go through the set, we'll see the exploding trains everywhere.
I won't be able to see it now.
Going back to the Baron, it's not a good rate. Like 4 mana for 3/4, not a good rate, and moreover, there are not that many ways of generating tokens in white-black specifically. There are some, but you need you need to like you need to work for it. And definitely there are not that many ways of generating tokens for 1 mana. And with Baron, I definitely want to trigger that on turn 1. When I cast it, I want to make a token of in some way. So you will need to work hard on that card. And I think that people are going to start by not working hard enough on it. If you manage to do it, it gets a sort of like Denethor kind of vibe in terms of generating bodies that are quite useful. Lifelink on that vampire is great. If you can start if you can start the ball rolling, I think it's going to be pretty powerful. But how to start the ball rolling is to remain to be seen, because I think most of the token generations are in red, and that makes me think there is a Mardu deck that maybe will be best home for the Baron Bertram Greywater.
Yeah, now what about just as a 4 mana 3/4 with that sack ability? That's an annoying effect, and honestly, it kind of implies that an opponent would have to kill this before killing anything else. Otherwise, you just get to cash in your thing for a card if you have the mana up.
Yeah, but then you have to sacrifice the real thing. The whole good point of the sack ability is getting the crap things to sacrifice. Like the mercenary tokens would be perfect. But if I don't have ways of generating them quite easily, it's going to be a bit harder. Maybe there's the 1 free life linker that draws you a card. But again, this is the card I want my opponent to deal with rather than sacrificing myself just to get.
Yeah, I would agree. This does
good thing. Best thing with it is, I think, the 1 mana 1/1 that makes the mercenary when it dies, because
That's
that
exactly what I
want
was
to
going to say.
sacrifice actively. And this also enables me to play this on turn 5 and then village rights the 1/1 and get the 2/1/1 tokens out of it.
Is literal village rights in this set?
It's got a different name, but it's a village right. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's called differently. Like, I don't know, something. I don't remember the name of it, but it's a 1 mana instant, sacrifice something,
Sure.
draw 2 cards.
I do see this as having some late game relevance. I mean, just having the ability. What was the wall in DMU? The 2 and a black 2/4 that had something similar to this, where it could just start sacking away things that weren't so relevant anymore. It was good in the Esper Walls deck with Wingmantle Chaplain and all that.
Yeah. There was it was the 2 mana 3/3 wall, was it? Or no, it was a 3 mana 2/4 wall.
It was a 2/4, yeah. And that just had this annoying effect of, yeah, you could point your removal spell somewhere else, but they could probably just sack the thing in response. And sometimes it'd be correct to do that anyway if they had a bomb. But this does effectively blank removal spells in the late game. It turns it into a lightning rod. And then if you have the mana, you can just, I don't know, sack your worst thing to draw a card on its way out.
And you got the mini Gravedigger that makes a mercenary token as well, which is actually works with this in multiple levels. I think it will be a card that is fine, but it won't be as good as people, I think, general hype is on it. And I think it will require like some more careful building in order to maximize it, because the rate on the 4 mana 3/4 is not that great.
Now, Ruthless Lawbringer, another token smoking over here. 1 white black 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, destroy target non-land permanent. Those O-rings, this thing is coming for those O-rings. It's just going to blow them all up.
Yeah, that looks really good. But again, you need to have those disposable creatures like a 1-drop or a mercenary token, and then you're happy.
Disposable creatures, you say?
Yeah, again, I'm happy to sacrifice the Forsaken Miner. I'm not that happy to sacrifice Outlaw Medic, because I already invested 2 mana in it. And I like 2 mana to draw a card is not such a great deal when you think about it. I want to generate value, and it should generate enough value that my opponent is actually quite happy killing it and giving me that card. That's the level of I want to achieve with my Outlaw Medic.
Wasn't it in not one of the more recent Innistrad sets? I can't remember if it was in the first or second of the most recent ones, but I think it was the one with Organ Hoarder in it. It was a cultist.
Novice cultist.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was a card that some decks, especially with what was the 1 mana? You could pay 3 to sack it, flip it into a 4/4, sack another creature, flip it into a 4/4. That Novice Occultist, I think it was seen as like a solid payoff, rather a solid enabler for that vector, where you had some solid sacrifice stuff, or if you traded it off, it wasn't the best playable in the world, but you were happy to have it when you had that specific thing going. Outlaw Medic, I think, is a much better card than the Occultist. It's a lifelinker, it has an extra toughness, and it looks a little strange, but I see this as sort of an anti-green-white card. Funny enough, because it is white, but this might be a way that you can say, I guess when you chump block with it and then sacrifice it in response, you don't get the lifelink, which is kind of funny, but this is that same type of body.
Yeah, Novice Occultist didn't have lifelink, and I think that this is a big difference between those things. So this thing will generate me value when I have it on my board, because it will either stop people from attacking, or it will gain me some life. While the Novice Occultist, once it was on board, it was disposable piece of cardboard that I'm happy to sacrifice because I want that card. It's probably more valuable than having the 1/2. That doesn't bring me any value. But because the lifelink, and lifelink, you might think, oh, well, it's a 1/3. I might have mercenary things. I can pump it to a 3/3. I'm happily putting that power on the Outlaw Medic. Because if I pump it into a 3/3, it actually, the value of that +1/+0 is much higher than putting it on anything else.
And they wouldn't want to trade with it, because then you get the card, which is that learning thing that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about some grave matters. Honest Rutstein here. 1 black green for a 3/2. Legendary creature, a human warlock at uncommon. When it ETBs, return target creature card from the graveyard to your hand. And then creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast.
That's such a lovely card.
Real nice.
Again, this is the card that will require some building around it. I want to cast it on turn 3. Because I want to get the maximum benefit from creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Which means I want to have a creature in my graveyard on turn 3. Which means 2 things also. I want to be playing the 2/2 zombie lifelink 2/2 that mails 2 cards when it ETBs. I definitely want to play as many of those as I can, because that increases the chance of Honest Rutstein getting Honest Rutstein should be getting the value. And also I want to be playing the desert with Surveil, the filter desert.
Right.
I want to, well, maybe I can spike some card that I can put in my graveyard from that. And that's like basically turns my land into an ETB card draw.
Like those
and I'm having
Vengeance decks.
Rutstein on turn 3, and then on turn 4 I can cast 2 3-drops, which is great.
That's awesome.
And these are the kind of set. I'm not saying it's going to happen every time. I'm not. I'm a realistic person. It's not going to happen every time. But I want to build a deck that will allow that to happen from time to time, because I'm very much favored if that happens. I love the card. It looks really good. It's really pushed.
Also, if you have 2 of these, nice little loop there, right? Yeah. Yep. Seems nice. And that's not the only thing bringing stuff back from the graveyard. Loopstein, huh? How about a Badlands revival? If they happen to somehow kill both of your Honest Rutsteins, you can just get them both back.
Yep. It returns 1 creature from graveyard to the battlefield and the other one to your hand. It is value card. It's not that great, I think. It looks okay, but there are just not like those amazing targets for it. There is one Armadillo, I think it is. It's a Sloth. Is it Sloth or Armadillo? There's a 7/7 something with reach, and that will be decent with it.
But there's no tight enough Rex,
Yeah, even then, I think I prefer back for more from the bonus sheet.
I did. That was on there.
It's a great card, and it's from Ikoria, which means it's like 20% better just automatically by being from Ikoria.
Oh, I love that deck with the Titanoth Rex and the Void Winnower or Void Beckoner, whatever it was. That was a really cool deck to play, and this does have echoes of that, but you'll have to do more work to actually get a big thing in the graveyard, because I mean by turn 4.
Well, the Sloth is the perfect, whatever Armadillo it is, because that thing has
yes.
That has the hard migration ability. You can cycle it to get a basic land at 3 life. So that's like this is the card you want to play in this deck. If you have Badlands Revival, you want to play also I think it's a 7 mana 6/6 or 6 mana 7/7 something.
That might not be the worst thing to do on turn 2 before Honest Rutstein on turn 3.
It also is. It has that ability of being able to cycle it, get a land, play a Rutstein.
Now, if we're looking to fill our graveyard, Patient Naturalist will do that.
Are you sure you picked the right card here?
Huh?
Are you sure you picked the right card? Treasure Dredger. I don't know what this was. It
I did pick this intentionally, and I have thoughts.
Okay.
Let me finish Patient Naturalist first. So, 2 and a green. It's a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, you mill 3 cards. You then put a land from among the milled cards into your hand. If you can't, crit a treasure token. Oh, hey there, buddy. You make a treasure token. What does your cat have to say about Patient Naturalist?
He's not patient.
An impatient natural cat. This fills the grave, and it also will often hit you a land. It's a 2-for-1, and if it doesn't, you still get the buyout of a treasure token. And then it's ramping you. So you're either getting a land drop for your hand for next turn, or ramp via a treasure. Seems awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that's going to be one of the stronger green commons, and it's going to be particularly good in green-black. So
now,
I think the one thing that the green-black might be suffering is that people will be playing it in almost every green color combination. Well, it's just so much better in green-black. you really want those graveyard synergies there.
Now, I did pick the Treasure Dredger over the one you were talking about earlier.
Dredger.
The 2-mana
next?
mill.
Rural Juror next?
Yeah. Treasure Dredger. I see this card as an interesting hint. And this, to me, points in the direction that green-black will care a little bit about. I mean, this is a black card that it's one of the black. It's a 2/2. It's a human rogue and uncommon. You pay 1 mana, tap, pay a life to create a treasure token. This is a very.
Why do you think it's a
card.
green-black card? Okay, because you just made the brave assumption that it's a green-black card. For me, it might be easily black-white card when I will activate it to make a treasure token and trigger Baron Bertram.
Okay, I mean, it has a home there too, but I see black-green as a potential 5-color enabler in the set. And this, to me, points at a 5-color possibility because of that armadillo you mentioned earlier, which can pitch itself into the grave. You now have a fat card in the grave to reanimate, or just to get back, and it's good to redo. And this seems to fit pretty well into that. I mean, it's either ramping you, or it just trades off in the early game, and then you are happy anyway because you're going to make it to the late game where you can do more stuff. It's a fixer. It ramps. If there's a 5-color nonsense deck and you're playing base green, and you have, say, some of these cards, these good green-black cards, I think Back for More and Badlands Revival would probably both go in any big 5-color powerful deck because you're likely splashing for bombs. I think you would probably play a Treasure Dredger, and you'd want that good early black removal. The Desert's Dew, I think, is what I'm thinking of. And there's some other solid black removal as well. I think this may be one of the ways you can move into a 5-color as base green-black. This is my justification.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there's at least in week 1, there's just going to be no problem in getting to 5 colors from whichever angle you want. Green will be always involved, I think, but...
For sure.
Yeah, it looks like this is a very splash-friendly format with quite a number of pretty powerful bombs at the multicolor slot. So I'm looking forward to opening some.
Now, how about some big plots of land? Can I interest you in this?
Yeah, go on then.
I was going for, what is that, Young Frankenstein? There's a joke in there that's maybe going to get this age verification flagged or something, but that's a slightly different play on words. Anyway, Doc Arlock, Grizzle Genius. Green, blue for a 2/3, Bear Druid uncommon. Spells you cast from your graveyard or from exile cost 2 less to cast, which is an interesting line of text. Then it says plotting cards from your hand costs 2 less.
Yeah, I thought you would go for your luck or luck.
That's so much better. All right, I can't edit the slide now. It's too late, but that's the official name now. Yes.
I do like Doc Orlock. It's just good on rate, 2/3 for 2 mana. It's fine. Hard to cast, but I guess if you're playing blue-green, shouldn't be that hard to cast a blue-green spell. Mm. If you untap with it, you will frequently just swamp. It's a Soul Ring. Soul Ring is good.
Yeah.
Because plotting cards from your hand costs 2 less. Next turn, you can, for example, cast 3 things with plot 3 as a cost. You can plot 3 of them. Or you can plot something that costs 4 to plot and something that costs 3 to plot. That's a good turn. You know, for 4 mana, you can plot a 5/4 Trampler that gains you 3 life. And you can do that. And if you add a 3 mana card, that's fine. When I was building Skeletons, I built a deck with Doc Orlock with Temur, where I also put some of the interesting red plot cards. Specifically, there is a card that plots for red and 2 colorless that when it ETBs, you exile a card from your top of your library and you can cast it until the end of turn. Because it exiles the card from the top of the library, it still gets the bonus discount from Doc Orlock.
That's really cool.
So it's like a mini combo. You can plot it. Next turn, you cast it. You exile a card. You have another card to cast. You see where it's going. Yeah, and it also had the 4 mana plot card that is a shock and a 3/3 reach creature. So I can plot it for 2 mana with Doc Orlok on board and ping something, and at the same time, next turn I cast a 3/3 reach creature. So yeah, I see the potential for that. Question is, can Doc Orlok survive being cast on turn 2? Again, not so many things kill it because there is no dedicated 3 damage spell except for Skewer the Critics, which is in the bonus sheet.
And it has to get through a 2/3 for that to happen.
Exactly. Well, if they are on the play, they can still kill it. No problem, I guess. But there are not so many things that will kill it. So there is like a good probability of untapping with it when you cast it on turn 2, especially when you're on the play. And that can be devastating when you do that, if you untap with it. Yeah.
Maybe you'd prefer to make your own luck. 3 green and a blue. It's a sorcery.
Orlok.
Maybe you'll make some more luck. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may exile a 9-land card from among them. If you do, it becomes plotted. Put the rest into your hand. And that last line of text I actually missed the first time I read this card. And I spent a good couple minutes thinking about it. Like, man, you're finding maybe a 4, 5, or 6 drop off the top of your deck. What's the likelihood of that? Is functionally casting it for 5 ever going to be good enough with the card selection? And then I read that you put the other 2 in your hand part, and I was like, oh, this seems awesome.
Yeah, I had the similar problem. Not the same problem. I had a similar problem. I was hearing people just rubbishing this card, and I'm like, okay, it's a 5 mana draw 3. How much more do you need it to do to be good? It's close to be good on ranges by 5 mana draw 3. It casts one of those things for free. But it seems like a pretty decent card. Obviously, you need a deck that maybe has a U-shaped mana curve. So you have like a bunch of 2s, but you also have a bunch of 5s. But it's going to be fine. I do like those green-blue decks that have a couple of draw 3 spells to make sure that if you survive the early offensive, you completely swamp with value.
Yeah, you don't just fizzle out.
And again, I'm hopeful that in this format, it will be possible to make one. And again, if you have Doc Orlok, you can be the one that is actually swamping someone with power because you were just fortunate to play it on turn 2 and then just
go to town.
Gazillion of powerful creatures on turn 3. So you have that in your repertoire.
I really would like to see a screenshot of someone casting Make Your Own Luck and hitting Cruel Ultimatum. I think that would be maybe.
Do you have it in the bounty board?
I didn't put that one in. I just put cast Cruel Ultimatum in some form. That's in the bounty board. If you
will you get bonus points? Will you get bonus points if it's going to be from Make Your Own Luck?
Yes, I will make that official right now. Right now, this moment, 3 extra bonus points on top of it. So, for some of our great big plots we've got going on here, Spinewood's Paladin, this is the one you mentioned earlier, right? The 4 and a green 5/4, but I don't think people are ever going to really cast this for 5, not outside of extreme circumstances. This is the Trampler. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life. It is plot for 3 and a green. I think whenever you have this in your opening hand, this is going to be a 4 mana thing, right?
I mean, I don't know. If I have a 4-drop that I can cast and extend the board, I'm going to cast a 4-drop, and I'm going to be happy casting it for 5. 5 mana, 5/4 that gains me 3 life because a trample is still going to be fine. So this is going to be the card that will test the limits of what we want to be doing with the plotting and when.
Mm-hmm. And this is just such a great rate by itself. A 5 mana 5/4 trample, ETB gain 3. Like, this feels like the usual Honey Mammoth, Colossal Dreadmaw type big thing for the green ramp decks. But they shaved off some things here. They shaved off some power, some toughness, some mana. But now it gets this cost reduction and gain 3.
Yeah.
And a stabilizer.
Wasn't there, like, in Zendikar Rising, the 5 mana 5/4 that gains 3 life? And it was just that without trample?
That's what
and
it
was still decent.
I think it was a wizard too for the blue-green wizard.
Cleric. It was a cleric.
Cleric, that's what it was, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was decent. And then this one has trample on top of that. Trample is big game for those kind of big, dumb creatures.
For sure.
Pushing some damage or being chumped to oblivion by a mercenary is a big difference.
I wouldn't call this guy dumb, but look what he's carrying.
Wow.
Yeah. And look what he's riding, man. I don't know if you'd rather deal with him or a loan shark, which I don't really comment on Magic lore too often. I like to follow it, but I do have some questions about the loan shark here.
I think that shark is currently en vogue in the meme department of the WotC design team, and we have to deal with it. I guess that they hit gold with Sharknado.
Right.
Shark Typhoon officially, but we all know it's Sharknado.
And
I think that this sort of got out of hand a bit, and they tried to overuse it. But now we have a loan shark, so that's I guess that's the reality we live in. I think it's loan shark good, but I think it's more suited for either the white blue or white blue red archetypes than for the green blue.
Interesting. Now this one it does have that double spell thing, right? When it enters the battlefield, if you cast 2 or more spells this turn, you draw a card. And interestingly here, its main cost as a 4-mana 3/4, you plot for 3 and a blue as well. So the plot cost is the same as the mana cost. So
yeah, because the plotting allows you to double spell more efficiently. I guess that's the
joke. I just don't know if it's a very good one, you know.
I've seen better.
Maybe I can interest you in a Violent Cacophony. Crown 2 blue-red for a 2/3 flyer, zombie horror. When you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it and draw a card.
Yeah, that draw card is quite a lot. But 4 mana, you can cast it and hope to untap with it. That's not something that interests me too much. So you want to probably combine it with some kind of a plot something turn before. Cast Crown, hopefully not get it killed, and then cast the second spell.
Immediately get that card.
Now we're talking, but you really, I think that the 3 mana plot spells are going to be such a premium in this format.
I think that's a great point. This should almost read as a 4 mana 3/4 flyer ETB, draw a card. Like that's what you want it to be. Basically,
yeah, that's what you want to be. The question is how easy it's going to be achieving it. And yeah, again, plotting cards for 3 mana is going to be absolutely essential to getting that. If you do that, you get one trigger from that, and you're good. You're golden. Right. You got your card back. If they can't deal with it, you just won the game. That's fine. The problem is what happens when you just spend 4 mana to play a 2/3 flyer, and you never got any value out of it, and it was killed by a 2 mana desert dude.
Right. Now, this vector spell spam here, clearly Crom asks you to play a second spell each turn, and plotting is an easy way to do that because you're spending nothing to cast that one, so you can cast something regular and then do this. But there's another vector sort of built in here. Slick Sequence implies this blue-red for an instant, uncommon. It deals 2 damage to any target, and if you cast another spell this turn, draw a card. This one also works really well with plot, but this also sort of pairs with these cheap cantrip instants and sorceries. Some usual red rummaging effects that let you discard a land and draw 2, something like that we expect to see here. Any blue opt type effects that let you just get a card off of the card that you cast before. Slick Sequence seems to pair pretty well with these as well.
Yeah, there's the blue 1 mana cantrip that will work very well with that, I think. I think that this effect is going to allow you to quite reliably activate casting 2 spells on your opponent's turns, which is a nice thing to have as a potential.
Raz Dazzler, one of the blue 1/2 human wizard, a common, does say whenever you cast your second spell each turn, not just second spell on your turn. I think that's a great point. Put a 1/1 counter on it, and it can't be blocked this turn. I guess that part you would want to do it, during your first main phase for that unblockability. But it is neat that if you second spell on your
and you can do that on turn 2.
Yeah.
There is the aura that plots for 1 red.
Yeah.
You plot it on turn 1, turn 2 Razzle Dazzler.
Then play that.
Play the aura. It becomes a 3/4.
The aura gives menace and trample, right?
This gives something. I'm pretty sure there's trample in there. I don't know if it's menace or haste or one of the two. I guess it doesn't matter. You have on turn 2. You have a 3/4. That's good, and it can grow further next turns if you manage to double spell.
And be unblockable. It doesn't matter what keywords it has then, it's just smacking.
Yeah, exactly.
We
Well,
also
yeah,
have
very aggressive and might be some build around. We have the Iron Fist Pulverizer as well.
yeah. 4 and a
We're
red.
doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
4
on.
and a red. This is a 4/5 reach, giant warrior at common. Cool art there. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, it deals 2 damage to target opponent, and you scry 1. Nice.
Yeah, this one I don't like.
Yeah.
We got like 2 of those creatures in the recent times that just did it for tap.
Right. They the
Like
Brontodon,
Naki Ogre, and then there was the one
the dinosaur.
Bentasaur or some dinosaur, yeah.
Yeah.
And these were just doing it for tapsies. And they also had reach, and they were the same kind of sizing. And this one requires to jump through hoops. Yeah, this extra scry is nice, but it requires to jump you through a lot of hoops to get an effect that we were getting for much easier.
So we'll say that this is a, we know what vector this is pointing, we know the direction, but the magnitude is just not there. Now, how about some mercs of the job? It's always good if a job has some good perks to it. And here the perks are making a ton of 1/1s. Earth of Joe, Frontier Mentor is 2 red white for a 2/4. So 4 mana 2/4. Okay. Core Advisor. And this thing says when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 red mercenary with the tap ability. And then whenever you activate an ability that targets a creature or player, copy that ability. You may choose new targets for the copy. The joke here is that the little tap effect of the mercenary, of course, gets double. So this really attacks as a 4/4, or you can just put that tap somewhere else and then spread it around, double buff of another 1/1, so it's a 3/1. Cool little card.
No, the joke is somewhere else. The joke is in the rubbish artifact that taps for 6 mana. 6 mana, tap, destroy target creature, target land, and target up to target and one target enchantment.
Okay.
And doubling that, I'm not kidding. It is attractive to me as a concept, and I will chase that dream as well.
A 6 mana artifact in your red white deck.
It's a 2 mana. It's a 2 mana artifact.
Mana.
It's a 2 mana artifact.
Excuse me.
And it sacrifices for tap 6 mana. So for 6 mana, you'll be able to destroy 2 creatures, 2 lands, and 2 enchantments or artifacts or something. You can also activate Mindslaver and get double game.
Is that? Doesn't Mindslaver say during target player's next? Okay, I either way, still, if you've Mindslavered someone in this format, if someone Mindslavers me, I'm scooping. Now, how about Fourth Aerlingus? That's a good card, right?
Yeah, it is a good card, but Form a Posse is not Fourth Aerlingus. For some, it's not a terrible card,
but it looks so much like it.
Yeah, in the means of having X red and white in its mana cost. Yeah. It also could be the Neon Dynasty version of it.
Oh,
a Ganju's Uprising. Why don't you compare it to this one?
I think it falls more on the Fourth Aerlingus side. At least this doesn't give your opponents creatures. This is the X red white, create X 1/1 of the mercenary tokens. That's it. It's a simple card. Hey, if you're trying to get to a red white deck where you have 6 mana anyway, this wouldn't be a bad place to put that 6 mana. I mean, make 4 1/1s with this cool tap effect.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's a late game card, which I think means it's more for that grindy deck that wants to produce mercenary, sacrifice them, maybe have the Bastion of Remembrance, whatever it's called, Rakish Crew, and grind opponent out rather than winning with aggro. So that's where I see it, because I want that late game. I don't want to play it in a deck that wants to kill the opponent by turn 6, 7, because if I want to kill my opponent by turn 6, 7, then whenever I want to cast that spell, it's not like going to be when I want to be in the game. So it's like not going along with the vector that I decided for my deck. Yeah, I see. I'm playing ball here.
Very good. You're a true aficionado. And honestly, Forma Posse does point that way. I mean, it's a red-white X signpost that if you cast it for X equals 1, you're going to be very disappointed. I don't think that's what this card is trying to tell the audience. I think it's saying, cast me for 4, 5, 6 mana and watch how well you get paid off.
Exactly. And then, of course, if you have the Bastion of Remembrance, having 5 mercenaries to block is going to be a problem for the opponent, because how they are going to kill you.
Right.
The answer is with the grizzled something 4/2 that gets trouble, but that's a different story.
Now, Prosperity Tycoon, 3 white. It's a 4/2 human noble at uncommon. When it enters the battlefield, you make a 1/1 red mercenary, and it has pay 2, sack a token. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Tap it. This, honestly, I don't even care so much about the other things. The fact that it is a 4 mana 4/2 that enters and makes a mercenary, I think that alone will be good enough for red-white to be interested in it.
It's a bit of a shame that it itself is a noble.
Yeah. Yeah, so it won't get all the mercenary buffs and such, but...
Yeah, I mean, it's a strong card. It's a strong card.
And obviously it can sack the token that you have there, or it can sack some of the token. I see this as a bit of like a wedge piece where maybe if you're doing like a Naya 4 power thing, this could be interesting. If Jolene's pumping out treasures.
I still see it more in the Mardu sacrifice kind of aristocrats. You need some nobles in aristocrat deck.
Of course. I guess that's what it's hinting at, right? And if you are going to the late game, this is a pretty solid blocker. Of course, there's that tap effect thing, but a 4-power indestructible creature.
It's also a good beater. I mean, this is the kind of problem with the seasoned Hallowblade or creatures of that style. The 3/1, that's 7-turn clock, but this is a 5-turn clock. You need to respect it. You can't just let it in 3 times.
Right. How about a Reckless Lackey? How often are you blocking this?
Yeah, I don't like that card at all.
Interesting. I was curious to hear your take on it. On the stream yesterday, you sounded like you weren't big on it, but this is red for a 1/2 Goblin Pirate at common. It is first strike, haste, and 2 in a red, sack it to draw a card and make a treasure. That's a lot of stuff for 1 mana, and when I see that much stuff on a 1-drop, I'm interested.
No. For 1 mana, you get a first strike, haste, 1/2. You get a lot more for 3 extra mana. That's my problem with it. 3 extra mana is nothing. You need to pay it somehow. You get a treasure out of it, but and I'm pretty sure I'm going to play this card occasionally.
It's that first strike haste.
And first strike is good with mercenaries. Don't get me wrong. And I do understand that the implication, but it's 2 toughness still. It's dice to a sneeze, really. If I start if I start pumping mercenary value into it, that becomes a really good target for removal, because you use that whole turn cycle to tap 4 mercenaries to make it a 5/2, and then it just gets shocked.
Well, then you can sack it and draw a card off of it.
Yeah, that's great. So you wasted a turn cycle to draw a card and get a treasure for 3 mana.
I am interested.
Not a great deal.
That's all. I like this little guy.
I think it's going to be less powerful than people think, because I think that the pendulum has swung, and now like every 1-drop is automatically becoming a candidate for the card of the year, and I'm going to be defensive about it. I think that there are plenty of bad 1-drops that we just sweep in our memory out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also considering this with combat tricks. Take up the shield to put a counter on this permanently as a 2/3 first striker.
Decent. I'd rather put it on my 5/4 trampling plot guy.
I have high hopes, that's all. Now, before we wrap up here, I noticed sort of within green, there seems to be some 5-color desert neighbors. Cac Tarantula involves costing less if you have a desert. Failed Fording gets better. Arid Archway, Deserts Do. These cards all seem to reward you for having deserts. So I was wondering, how highly of a pick are you thinking deserts will be?
Quite a high pick. Most of the deserts. Arid Archway is going to be very interesting, because that card, I think, is going to be pretty important in first weeks. That card is going to be very powerful, and people are not going to take it very highly. So look at it. It's great. You can find it put it on the battlefield, bounce something back.
Now, there's a whole lot of lands in this set. The deserts themselves, the tap lands that ping for 1. The ranch, which helps pay off for mounts. Conduit pylons, this surveil land that filters at common. And Mirage Mesa, which is a desert that you can use as fixing. You pick the color.
Yeah, so I think I see like ranch as a sort of trap that people are going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Pylons as a great black-green card. Great green-black card. I mean, it's going to be amazing in that because it will also let you splash. And Mirage Mesa is just probably one of the best lands in the format. So happy to play either of them, except for the Bucolic Ranch, which I think.
And the Mesa. This is like, was it Shimmerdrift Vale in Kaldheim? Yeah, that was a high pick. Now, to run through some top white commons, not to brag, but last time all 3 of mine were right. It was Binding, Inspector, and Inside Source. Here, I'm looking at Mystical Tether, Take Up the Shield, and Holy Cow. What do you make of my analysis here?
I mean, that looks about right. I can see some world where the 2-mana 3/1 is going to make that list.
Maybe over the Holy Cow?
Of Holy Cow, probably.
Yeah. I toyed with that one for a while, back and forth on those two, but I'm pretty confident on Take Up the Shield and the Tether. Just a common O-ring. We saw with Makeshift Binding just how strong that is.
7 O-rings.
And 7 of them. Blue, I didn't do too hot on. Cold Case Cracker and Accusation were not it. Projector Inspector was. This time around, I'm thinking Harrier's Strix. There's that Phantom Interference you mentioned. I think even what you mentioned with the counterspell payment problem, I still see it as being strong enough and flexible enough. And Take the Fall, that was the cantrip. The blue, target creature gets -1/-0 until end of turn, or -4/-0 instead if you control an outlaw, which I think will just basically always be true for blue decks. And then you draw a card off of it too.
That's an interesting. I think that one card I would put on to have Take the Fall. I would probably not have the Strix in the top 3, but I am stretched to think what I would put in there instead of it. Perhaps Razzle Dazzler. And maybe Jailbreak Scheme. One of those 2 cards I think should be in top 3.
Black didn't do the best on either. I had Slice and Gorehound as slightly higher picks. Murder still ended up being good enough. I have here the old removal suite, Desert's Due. I see pretty great. 2-mana instant speed. It's going to kill a lot of the 2-drops. Mourner's Surprise. This, I don't know if this is a hot take or anything, but I really like this type of card. This sort of 2-mana Gravedigger effect. That's the one in the black. You make a mercenary and return up to 1 target creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that those cards are going to be great. In a broader bench kind of situation, I also see the Nezumi Link Breaker and Skullduggery and Desperate Bloodseeker. And I don't know exactly what the order is going to be, but those cards seem to me quite close on the power level.
Skullduggery, I entirely missed. I think that probably should be on here. What do you think of Vault Plunderer, the 2 and a black 3/1 ETB draw?
I think it's great. Yeah, I think it's great.
I
Despite Skullduggery being annoying for it, but
at least you got your card off it already. Maybe Skullduggery over the Surprise, actually. Then.
Yeah, that might be the case.
Red, not to brag, but got all 3 again. I'm looking at Irascible Wolverine, Prickly Pear, and Thunder Salvo.
Knowing the stats of the format, I'm quite high on the Explosive Derailment. Probably over the Thunder Salvo.
Yeah.
I just think that Thunder Salvo is good in the early game, but I think that plenty of red decks are going to be trying to play till the late game, and because of that, they want a more flexible removal that will deal with more threats. Well, Thunder Salvo is good in the early turns when you can double spell, but later you just top deck it and it's just a shock for 2 mana, so it's going to be a problem. Prickly Pear looks good. Irascible Wolverine, well, these are good cards. I'm not sure if Wolverine is exactly the thing I want. That may be my version of a hot take. Discerning Peddler, I think, is an important card in red, and I think it will have
2-drop,
quite
right?
decent stats. It's a 2-drop that ramages when it ETBs, yeah. But yeah, again, those things are pretty close.
Green was fine. I got Bite Down on Crime, Nervous Gardener, and Mist on the tipster. I have the Paladin, the Naturalist, and Snakeskin Veil as my predictions.
Yeah, it's so hard to predict green.
There are a lot of good comments.
I mean, green is deep.
Yeah. I mean, the Mana Dork as well, the 2-drop Mana Dork. Yeah, this one's tough.
Throw from the Saddle, the 2-mana bite spell, that can have a high win rate as well. Beaver is a pretty decent creature. So
all those are
I'm not questioning your choice. I would probably put like Snakeskin Veil as a #1 card in green, and then behind it like a broad bench of really closely matched cards. My guess will be that the Paladin is going to be slightly weaker than people paint it to be. Slightly. It's going to be a great card, but just slightly. So maybe like the Hard Bristle Bandit will overtake it. Maybe Throw from the Saddle will be better than that. But yeah.
Great. Well, that ends the format breakdown for Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Oh man, Sierkovitz, thank you for joining the Draft Chaff show for this. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing your expertise, and a couple stories about. I'm still not over this horseback riding nonsense.
Well, I'm a famous equestrian aficionado. Not really. You wanted the horse story, and that's the only one I got.
I couldn't have asked for better. Folks, thank you for joining us. Again, check out Draft Chaff, and Sierkovitz, people can find you all over the place, yeah?
Yeah, they can.
A lot of those things are on the screen right now, but go check out Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Magic Numbers is a weekly listen for me, and it's
a weekly listen that has been not updated since 2 weeks ago. But I was on vacation. I'm excused. I'm gonna upload
this is a good excuse,
the episodes.
I found that on YouTube, right? So, people, thanks for listening. Happy drafting, and have fun in Outlaws of Thunder Junction.